Mark Brown is now an aerospace consultant. Building and maintaining Indiana's transportation system takes teamwork from a variety of local, county, state, and government officials, as well as contractors, engineers, and suppliers. The space program has a similar portfolio of diverse stakeholders who must collaborate on large, multi-year projects in order to be successful. Mark Brown will talk about teamwork and leadership lessons in his address to you entitled The Road to Space. Please join me in welcoming a Boilermaker to the Purdue Road School, Mark Brown.
Well, hello everyone. I am absolutely delighted to be here, and there are a couple things we have to deal with first of all. How many true Boilermakers are really here? Okay, good. And now for the hard one. How many Notre Dame graduates are here? Okay, that's important, because now I have to adjust my remarks so that, short words. And I had to do at least one. But seriously, I am absolutely delighted to be here. I'm also very proud of the fact that not only am I a Purdue alum, my wife is from Purdue, both my kids have gone to Purdue, and my son-in-law, Tony Gillen, is out here somewhere. Tony, where are you? Somewhere, Tony. Tony is here going to graduate school right now and is studying environmental engineering. So if anybody needs a real bright young kid, go see Tony. Okay, we're going to get started with the presentation, and this kind of cheesy title I have, The Road to Space, you might think, oh, that really doesn't apply, but it does. And let's start by looking at some similarities between what you guys have done historically and what the space program has done. The first thing is, we started following the trails left by animals, right? Deer trails, things like that, where one or two of us would go at a time, and as society and particularly industry developed, we started to widen the trails, clear them. We started using carts. We started doing all the kind of things that we actually did in the space program. But my favorite one is this quote you see at the bottom, and I hate reading slides, but I'm going to read this one because there's a little editorial that goes with it. From earliest times, one of the indicators of a society's level of development has been its road system or lack thereof. Now, America led the space program worldwide for decades, and no longer do we. In fact, I don't know if all of you know that, but we currently have no ability to put our own people in space with our own assets, and that's something that we as a nation need to address. But let's get on to the more fun things. The first one is there literally a road to space, and is there a figurative road to space? And it turns out that there is literally a road to space, and you guys probably didn't know it. And it's called the Crawlerway. It goes from the Vehicle Assembly Building, I'm not kidding, this is true. It goes from the Vehicle Assembly Building at the Cape out to the launch pad. It's about 2.5 miles long, and it's built so you can carry 7 million pound plus vehicles on it. Okay, here's my sexy slide for all of you engineer types. Oh, you think I'm kidding? I'm not kidding. Because there's somebody out there going, oh, this is really cool. It's made out of, Alabama river rock. Well, the layers are, 3 foot thick, and there's all kinds of different aggregates, and if I was a civil engineer, we could go off and do that. But I'm sure in one of your classes, they'll talk about that in more detail. I'm here more to entertain. And this is a picture of that very roadway as you go up to the launch gantry with the space shuttle. It really is a truly amazing thing. And another question I have to ask is, how many of you have actually been to the Cape to see a launch of a space vehicle? Oh, great. So when I need sound effects, you guys can chime in and do that part for me. Well, let's get started with the beginning of the space program, because the history of the program and the coordination and leadership and problem solving that we went through is the same as what you guys have gone through, only a much longer time. The first roads go all the way back to the Persians, right? In fact, you guys have been doing this particular conference since 1915 was the first one, I believe. Okay, when did our space program start? We're going to get to that. There's a little bit different in the chronology here. But the beginning really goes back here in the United States to Dr. Robert Goddard. He did the first experimentation with liquid-fueled rockets in the 20s out in New Mexico, and it was purely a trial and error system where they would take what knowledge they had technically, They would make an attempt to fabricate a rocket. They would fly it. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. And they would take it back into the laboratory and keep trying again. And that trial and error and never give up attitude is what eventually led to success. The true space race, though, really began with the launch of Sputnik in '57. In fact, Sputnik was a basketball-sized satellite, and this is one of the hard questions I have to ask, because I can remember as a kid going outside and seeing Sputnik go overhead. How many other people remember that? Oh, thank God. Okay, now, for you younger people, or those of you that were too cowardly to raise your hands, this was a really big deal. We were in the middle of a Cold War, and this thing was orbiting overhead, and we literally went outside, and we could see the satellite go over, and there was all kinds of talks about how the Russians could put nuclear weapons and other things on it, and we literally did not know what that meant. As a general public, we were totally ignorant of what space and space flight and space employment meant. But what it did do, though, is it started the space race. We got into the business in '58 with the launch of our first satellite, which is called Explorer 1. Explorer 1 was also a very small satellite. It only weighed 30 pounds, if you can think of that, 30 pounds. And it was a very rudimentary spacecraft and satellite by today's standards. The first human to go into space was done by the Russians, Yuri Gagarin. A lot of us that go back a few years remember how big a deal that was. And it also was a stimulus to get us started with a commitment to develop our own manned spaceflight. And just like in transportation, we went through a spiral development process that started with 1- and 2-year-long experiments that ended up with maturing the technology in an eventual goal, in this case, to go to the moon and beyond. The first one of these was called Mercury. A lot of us remember the selection of the original 7 astronauts and some of the first flights. One of the things that's not well known is who the first astronaut to go into space was. It was Ham the Chimp, who happens to be a graduate of Notre Dame. And oh, I had to do, I'm sorry. Now listen, how could you expect a Boilermaker to give a speech like this and not at least get, okay. So anyway, my Notre Dame buddies don't appreciate this slide at all, but we really did. We did use animals to pave the way because, oh, that was a good pun, wasn't it? I didn't think about that one. But see, I'm getting better all the time. We literally did not know what spaceflight was going to do to the human body. There were all kinds of theories from the medical community that eyeballs would fall out of your sockets, that you would choke, your heart would stop, any number of things. And it was only through animal experimentation that we got comfortable enough to send the first Americans, the first human beings in. Now, the next step up from primates is, of course, the Navy, so we sent Alan Shepard up. Okay, I did time in the Air Force, I can't help that either. And it was very successful, and it led eventually to, and a lot of us remember this is a really big deal, John Glenn, Freedom 7, his first orbital flights, and there was a great sense of excitement here in America because our program was totally out in the public and visible to everyone, where the program managed by the Soviet Union was totally in the dark and secret. We would find out about launches that they made after they had occurred. Everybody could watch both our successes and our failures as we went through them one by one. There was a great leap forward in technology in the 60s when all this was going on, and it resulted in the development of some not only new technologies, but new perspectives on the world in which we live. The Gemini program is probably one of the best examples because it allowed us to put 2 people in orbit, and one of the fun things you can do if you ever get